It's late August, but the Ottawa Senators have made an NHL signing. We'll get into who Nick Cousins is and how does he fit in this upcoming roster.
I'm Jake Sanderson.
I'm Tim Stützle, and you're listening to the Locked On Senators podcast.
You're Locked On Senators, your daily podcast on the Ottawa Senators. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome. It's a bonus episode of Locked On Sens. I'm Ross Levitan alongside Brandon Pillar. We've got fresh haircuts, both of us. Holy. And we're excited to chat about an NHL signing. 1 year, $800,000 is what the Senators are giving Stanley Cup champion Nick Cousins. Pilsy, your immediate reaction when you heard the news about an hour ago when our guy, Lalim's Martian, was first to report.
Well, we know the streets don't miss. He is merely a conduit of the streets, preaching the good word and getting those scoops out there. So we thank Lalim's Martian for that. My immediate reaction was down then up. Immediately, I was like, oh, man, this is such a Sens signing, especially he's from Belleville. Like, I don't know about this. And then Ross, I don't know, 2-3 minutes later, I was like, you know what? I'd rather have this guy on my team than have to play up against him, especially on a division rival. Like if he would have stayed with Florida, wouldn't have loved that. And the Sens could get a little greasier. So after some time thinking about it and sitting on it and doing a little prep, I'm okay with the signing, Ross. I would even say for $800K 1 year, I like it.
Nick Cousins is a Belleville native who's played for a handful of NHL teams over the course of the last decade. Started with Philly, 3 seasons there, moved on to Arizona, then Montreal for 1 year, Vegas, Nashville, and then the Florida Panthers. So he's got 592 NHL games of experience. That in and of itself is right up there among the most for depth players on the Ottawa Senators. We know the fourth line is in flux. We believe that Angus Crookshank has a great shot to make that as a left winger. We know that Zach McEwen's on a one-way contract as well. But this, to me, just adds another wrinkle, another competition in training camp. This isn't a contract that can't be buried if he doesn't make the team or if he finds himself being somebody who actually hurts the team. As we'll get into the type of player he is, there's no doubt he's a rat. I'm sure he wears that title proudly, but some of the hits that this guy's throwing are like pretty egregious, like pretty tough to watch. And afterwards, it's not like he's Chris Neal running through guys and then looking for who he's going to fight. He's looking for how he can get inside of his shoulder pads and turtle away. So he can be a frustrating player. I think he's a lot more Maxime Lapierre than he is a tough guy in the National Hockey League. But he's certainly going to make people pissed off to play against him. And I think Ottawa, frankly, was missing that element in their game last year and years before.
Yeah, I would agree. And I think Ross, they even did, like halfway through the year, the league does a unanimous players poll. I think they did a poll on dirtiest player and he might have won that. Maybe you can double fact check that for me. But if not, then it's unofficial that he is the dirtiest player left in the NHL. But again, I'll say it again. I'd rather have him on my team than playing up against him, especially, Zach McEwen was the Ottawa Senators' tough guy. Didn't exactly go well. And I also have to agree with you. Nick Cousins is not your prototypical tough guy. He's your greasy rat that you hope gets under the skin of opponents and maybe scores a goal here and there. I mean, Ross, I sent this to you and you posted it, and it's worth watching on loop if you're a Sens fan. The last playoff goal that Nick Cousins scored was an overtime winner, not this playoffs, the playoffs before, but up against the Toronto Maple Leafs to knock them out of the playoffs. So if you're a Sens fan, we love watching Leaf killers, and that's what he's done. And he's a Stanley Cup champ. He played 1 game in the finals, albeit a 5-1 loss. But he played in the finals. His name is on that 35-pound silver trophy. So it's good to add that to the room.
That's hilarious that's the one game he got into in the finals. Game 6, by the way, if you're scoring at home. So it was on the road in Edmonton. And to me, that does make me a bit anxious, a bit worried, because the reason he wasn't in the lineup, Pilsy, is they couldn't trust him not to take a dumb penalty, a bad play where they're now on their heels and now they're looking at at killing another penalty against such an electric power play like Edmonton has. So, I mean, he didn't take a penalty in that game. He only played 9 minutes, but still, it's just like, I don't know. This is kind of
the
a
risk you take with the rat, Ross. If you got to take the good with the bad with the player like that. Sometimes it's going to work and it's going to throw the other team off. You hope the other team stars. He pisses them off. And then sometimes it's not going to work. And the ref's like, okay, you've tried your little greasy bit here. No one's biting for it. I'm going to start giving you penalties here. So it does happen.
He was a centerman early on in his career. There was a year in Arizona where he took over 500 faceoffs, but over the last number of years, I mean, his first year in Florida, he took 150 faceoffs, was right around 49%, but last year only took 32. So he's a guy who I think as his career has unfolded, he's now 32. He's 31 years old, June birthday, in Belleville, as I mentioned. So this is also kind of like, hey, look, he gets the guaranteed contract. And at this point in the offseason, we're looking at more PTO territory than anything else. So he gets that guaranteed $800,000 near league minimum contract. But with that, if he goes on waivers and doesn't get claimed, maybe he's like, oh, at least I can be close to home, play for his hometown team. Footy was telling us his dad's a pretty well-known name in the Belleville community. I think he was the city's minister of finance, if there's ministers for city politics. Not a politics guy, I'll tell you that for free. But what I do know is that I like my hockey teams with a little piss and vinegar. So I don't mind this signing from that standpoint. I just do worry that he could ultimately hurt the team with his antics rather than help them. It's going to be a tightrope that he's going to have to walk to stay in my good graces, because if he's out there putting the team shorthanded, he's really kind of losing any value that he brings otherwise.
Yeah, and that's fair because, I mean, you look at points-wise, his career high is 27. Now, that wasn't last year or the year before, so at least it's recent. And Ross, he's got a lot of playoff experience, 63 playoff games. Like, this guy has the experience. He's in his 30s, and it's interesting, too, to look at his contract history. Like, he signed 1 year, 1 million, well, 2 years at $1 million in Arizona, 1 year, 1 million Montreal, 1 year, 1 million Vegas. Then he gets $3 million for 2 years with Nashville, and then 2.2 with Florida. Now he's coming in on a 1 year, $800K. So he's taking a significant, you talked about us having haircuts on this show. Nick Cousins is taking a significant haircut, especially Ross, going from Nashville and Florida, tax-friendly states, to now taking a huge pay cut and coming up to Ottawa. This is, it definitely seems like this is a move. He's like, I don't want to go on a PTO. I'll sign this. And here we are. Nick Cousins, your newest Ottawa Senator.
So 2 videos you can watch if you want to become a Nick Cousins super fan. You can watch his goal that eliminated the Toronto Maple Leafs in the 2023 playoffs. So the Leafs finally got past the first round, and then Nick Cousins put them to bed shortly after. You can also go back to a 2017 video where he fights Chris Kunitz, of all people.
All right.
For more on how he fits into the Ottawa Senators, Nick Cousins, that is, we will discuss where we would place him for opening day of training camp next. You're listening to a bonus edition of Locked On Senators, your team every day.
Today's bonus episode of the Locked On Senators podcast is brought to you by our friends over at Game Time. We love Game Time, and they got a new feature called Game Time Picks. It makes getting tickets for your favorite live events even easier, if you can believe it. Game Time Picks filters out the fluff to show you only the incredible deals on great seats, so you don't have to waste your time searching through thousands of tickets. You want to go through Game Time because you can have the all-in pricing. If you turn on that feature, you're going to know what the price of your ticket is without those nasty surprises when you get to checkout. Ross and I love the seat views. You want to make sure that logo is facing the right way. Check out the seat view on the app. Lowest price guarantee. You got to check out Game Time. Take the guesswork out of buying tickets with Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off your first purchase. Terms apply. Again, create an account and redeem code LOCKEDONNHL for $20 off. Download Game Time today. What time is it? It's game time.
Welcome back, Locked On Senators. It is a bonus edition, Thursday, August 29th. We've already recorded tomorrow's polarizing Ring of Honor So stay tuned for that. We are going to draft the most polarizing players in Ottawa Senators
You
history.
think Nick Cousins would be on that list if we had the time?
Hey, next year, it could be just that. Now, the Ottawa Senators making the news official. The quote from general manager Steve Stais: Nick gained a lot of valuable experience playing almost 600 games in the NHL and having played in the Stanley Cup finals in 2 straight seasons. He brings grit and tenacity to his game that adds to the competitive nature of our group. The question is, Mr. Brandon Pillar, I'm going to call you Coach Pilsy now. Where do you start him day one of training camp?
Ross, sometimes you throw me hardball, knuckleball questions that I'm not able to hit out of the park, but this is the easiest answer for me. I think really there's no debate what line he's on. This is a fourth line player. I will have him on the wing. Like you mentioned, he didn't play a lot of center, or at least didn't take a lot of face-offs last season, but I think a left wing on the fourth line, Ross, I would almost say it's a lock. Like, I would be surprised. I know you mentioned Crooker, but I'll still say the same argument. I think Crooker needs to be in a third line role to be used effectively. Like, going from top 6 in Belleville to playing fourth line in the NHL is a tough transition. Not that I don't think Crooker can't do it, but I just think signing a guy like Nick Cousins to a one-way deal like that kind of solidifies, at the very least, Ross, he's going to be on the NHL roster the whole time. Maybe it's plug and play. Maybe he gets a couple games, takes a game off, that kind of thing. But I wouldn't be surprised if we see Nick Cousins for, let's play a game here, over under Nick Cousins NHL games. I think setting it at 55 is fair. I would even say closer to 60.
Who plays more NHL games, Noah Gregor or Nick Cousins next season? Injuries excluded, of course.
I think they're probably pretty similar. I've got Noah Gregor kind of locked in as that fourth line center now. I know we had talked a lot about Jan Yannick, but I just think the Noah Gregor signing is a guy that they want to see. He's a little bit more two-way. He's got a bit more speed, and he spent the last 2 years in the NHL. So, Ross, I think the fourth line, the issue is you start making lineups and then you say, well, I don't know if I want a fourth line full of lefties, right? That's what was happening to me. I had Yannick on that line as well. That's a lefty. So I started looking at righties that can join that line. I'm looking at Nick Cousins, Noah Gregor, and either this is 2 different scenarios. Zach McEwen, if you just want to get real greasy with it, short term, that could be a play. Or you want to add, if you want a fourth line where you got the grease, the defense, and the offense, toss Adam Gaudette on that right wing. Those are kind of options I'm looking at here.
There's a few really greasy options for sure. I think, look, and Nick Cousins, by all accounts, seems like he's very well liked in the room. We talked about quite a bit how fans obviously have different views of him. This kind of guy, if you're watching him kind of run around and he's got a few headshots under his belt. I think he's got to have had a suspension or 2 over the years.
Has to have. There's no way. The video I just watched of him being the dirtiest player in the league, there's no way he didn't come clean with no suspensions on that video alone.
I'm not sure he's ever been suspended. And in February, he told the Miami Herald that he disagrees with the narrative that he's a dirty player. So you like that one?
That's a tough sell. I mean, I don't
ask
know.
Ask Eric Gabranson about that one. You see the one where he put his head into the boards?
Yeah, or Zucker, or he got into it with Matthews too. Like, there was a lot of greasy moments.
Look, there's also a long history here. I'm sure that Brady just picks up the phone to Matthew and say, hey, what's he been like the last couple of years? And obviously, sometimes those most hated players are the most well-liked in the room. A la David Perron. We just went over this. It's basically, and look, now the Ottawa Senators have a core where they've got Brady Tkachuk, Ridley Gregg, Nick Cousins. Who am I missing here?
David Perron, you just mentioned.
David Perron, Tyler Klevin. The league hasn't even met the K train fully yet.
Yep.
There's gonna be some nights that get out of hand for the Ottawa Senators. That's a hot, maybe a simmering hot take at this point.
No, that's fair. And Ross, I know we mentioned he was kind of in and out of the lineup last playoff run with the Panthers, but the previous season, the one where we talked about he scored that big goal, he played 21 playoff games, and back-to-back Stanley Cup Finals appearances. Like, that, say what you want, but that is the type of experience the Sens are looking for. They get a 31-year-old Belleville native. You get a guy with playoff experience, and you get him at 1 year, $800K. Like these are the types of moves you make in late August, and I think it's a good fit on the ice.
In February, the NHLPA players poll said, which player would you like to punch in the face the most?
Okay.
And that is where Nick Cousins finished first.
What was the
in
percentage?
NHL. I don't have it here. It's actually our friend Armando Velez from Locked On Florida Panthers.
Nice.
The title of his episode. Apparently, Nick Cousins' face is the one opposing players want to punch most.
I like it.
Go check out Armando's video there
boy.
for more on that. But look, like the Ottawa Senators got pushed around, not only in certain games last year, but against the Florida Panthers.
Yes. Yeah.
So if you can't beat them, beat them.
Yeah, if you can't beat them, beat them. Yeah. But that's the thing too, Ross. Like the last thing we want is Brady getting mixed up in more fights because he feels like he has to be that guy. Now, again, Nick Cousins, not necessarily a fighter. I totally understand that.
Fighter.
But if he can,
how many fights last year do you think Nick Cousins?
Oh, I don't know, 3
on the dot, and I don't think he really wanted.
Boom. But what I'm saying is
he definitely didn't want the one with Gabranson.
No, but Branson made sure he got it. He fed him a couple times.
Well, goody. We know in Ottawa, and Gabranson could be in the mix for polarizing player, albeit such a short stint. We're doing our Ring of Honor tomorrow. But one thing Goody can do is fight.
Oh, yeah. Yeah, he is a tough guy. At least what Nick Cousins could do is hopefully divert some of that frustration and tension that leads to boiling points away from Brady Tkachuk is where I was going there.
Yeah, that's cool. Okay, so you gave your line. I'll say that my fourth line, I kind of like having Cousins as the fourth line center. And I know that he hasn't taken a ton of faceoffs this year, but I think for me, he's going to be the fourth line center.
But don't you want someone with a little more defensive responsibility there?
No, I think he's defensively responsible enough.
Okay.
I think enough. And this is just a start, obviously. This is day one training camp. We'll see how the chips fall, and they should fall based on merit, not by contract status, especially when you have an owner that's clearly not going to be worried about paying a guy $800K in the minors. We've seen a multitude of two-way contracts where guys are getting $400,000, $350,000. So I think that you're looking, for me at least, Cousins, Gregor, and Crookshank. That's my fourth line. McEwen, to me, starts training camp on the fifth line and kind of has to work his way into the mix up there. So out of those guys, I mean, Zach Ostapchuk could be a dark horse, but to me, it's like him and Halliday. I almost want to see them with regular NHL guys, at least day one training camp again, to see if they can keep pace with guys a little higher, because you don't want Ostapchuk coming into camp and just being, oh, he's a fourth line guy. No, you have higher hopes ultimately for Stapchuk.
And he's only played one more year in Belleville, and he could do for another good top role in Belleville as well.
Exactly. So a lot of intrigue now with training camp less than 2 weeks away. The Ottawa Senators addressing depth once again, acquiring Nick Cousins from free agency and looking for the free agent market. And I had to take a look because I was like, okay, who else was out there? Why is Nick Cousins the guy who the Senators are settling on here? Not a whole lot else, especially for a fourth line role. Like Tyler Johnson's another guy. He's 5'9". Like he's got the cup pedigree from his time with Tampa, but he doesn't make a whole lot of sense. Were there any other names of free agents that you're like, man, I would have preferred them?
Not forwards. If we're talking about roster spots, I still thought and still think they're going to look at the very least a PTO for a veteran defenseman. But no, I kind of thought they were done with forwards, Ross, and I kind of thought that they were going to try to leave a little space for your Crookshanks, Ostapchuks, Hallidays, Yannicks, Gaudets. I mean, there's a lot of guys fighting for that any spots in Ottawa. So this was an interesting move, but we'll see. We'll see how it goes.
In lieu of final thoughts, Pilsy, I will ask you your final opinion. Do the Senators add another NHL body before training camp? Whether it's PTO or a legit contract.
Okay, yes. I think there's going to be a PTO for sure. Honestly, I think you should bring a guy in on a PTO every year. Like, why not see what he's got? let everybody know, hey, you think spots are easy to get? Nope. We're trying to bring in the right players. We're trying to bring in players that want it. And guys that come in on PTOs, they got chips on their shoulders. They got something to prove. They're like, I don't understand why I didn't get a contract here. I'm pissed off. I'm going to show teams that I'm not riding off into the sunset and retiring yet. So I think it's a smart move to bring guys in on a PTO.
Okay. Well, we will find out soon. Will we get another Josh Bailey? Or maybe another Derek Brassard, not in terms of position, but in terms of guys who either come in and make an impression, make the team, get a contract, or guys who are just in and out for a week or two. My only problem with that, Pillsy, is like, if you're going to give a guy preseason games, like you're taking away an opportunity for certain prospects who maybe you want to see Oscar Pettersson in a preseason game, or guys like that who are, just getting their feet wet, probably won't play games in the NHL this year, but you kind of want them to get the taste of it and get the pace, albeit in preseason. So that's the only thing I worry about having guys who are just
7 games though. Like you can make it work.
Yeah, that's fair. Okay. Well, today was also pretty cool at the CTC. Certain season ticket holders were able to go and meet Travis Green. He did a presentation. Sylvain Saint Laurent and Ian Mendez were both there. So I like that they're doing these different events. And our guy, Kevin Lee, Bring Back Lee, posted that the food was awesome. They really took care of everyone. Cyril Leader was there. And Pillsy, I don't know if Ian asked this question. If so, we might need some royalties. Travis Green was asked what the X factor is for his team this year.
Okay.
A very original question we ask all of our citizens.
That's a great question. Not going to lie.
Great question.
Yep.
Do you know what he says it is?
It's going to be some politically correct answer, not one player.
The hunger to win among the players and their willingness to look in the mirror.
Hey, I like that. I like that. And that's the way you got to go if you're the head coach. You don't want to single out guys and leave guys out. But yeah, that's the mindset Travis Green has, and that's the mindset this team needs. So I'm down.
Should we redecorate our studios and just have mirrors everywhere?
Mirrors. Yeah.
We're not afraid. We're willing to look in the mirror.
Yeah, we'll do it. I mean, we're looking in mirrors right now, looking at ourselves on the screen. Travis Green, we are mirror-looking guys. And I don't know about you, Ross, but I could eat. I'm usually hungry.
Yeah, usually. Don't get me started. Go look at my Twitter for DoorDash's inability to bring
Ross
me my food
hungry
yesterday. I'm starving. Let's get this bread and hopefully some things on it. Hope you enjoyed this bonus Locked On Senators. We will be back with episode 11-12 tomorrow. Ring of Honor. Nick Spence joins us. The most polarizing Senators in franchise history. Let us know in the comments below. Do you like the move? Do you hate it? Why? All that and more. Locked On Senators. We are nearing season 6 of the show. For today, we say goodbye. For Brandon Pillar, I'm Ross Levitan. This has been a bonus edition of the Locked On Senators podcast. Your team every day.